In the quiet, dim hours of early morning, the serene town of Haltom Heights was jolted awake by a sudden, piercing disturbance. The local police station, usually a hub of tranquil routine, was abruptly thrust into high alert with the receipt of two harrowing emergency calls. These weren't just any calls. They were the kind that made even the most seasoned officer's blood run cold. The first call, a panicked, trembling voice that seemed to echo the terror of the night. It was Heidi. Her words were rushed, filled with an unmistakable fear. Before she could finish, a loud bang shattered the line into silence. The operator, with a pounding heart, tried to reconnect, but the line was as lifeless as the night. Moments later, a second call pierced through the stillness. It was Nick, Heidi's husband, his voice a stark contrast to the earlier calm. A cacophony of cries and pleas for help. His words were broken, punctuated by sobs, painting a picture of chaos and despair. As the sun timidly rose, casting its first light on the quaint houses of Haltom Heights, a small fleet of police cars raced towards the Exon residence. They were prepared for the worst, yet nothing could have braced them for the scene that awaited. Arriving at the address, the officers were greeted by a sight that would haunt their memories for years to come. It was a scene ripped right from a nightmare. A cruel jigsaw puzzle that would take 13 long years to piece together. The morning's serenity was irrevocably shattered, giving way to a mystery that would weave its dark threads through the heart of this small American town. It was the beginning of a journey into an abyss, one that would test the limits of truth and deception. The dawn of despair had just broken, and its shadows would loom long and deep over Haltom Heights. Long before the dawn of that fateful day, Heidi Exon's life was a canvas of vibrant hues, each stroke a testament to her joyous and fulfilling existence. Born on a cold December day in 1984, her world was the picturesque Haltom Heights in Minnesota, a place where dreams seemed within arm's reach. Heidi was the heart of her family, a beacon of love in a household that thrived on warmth and unity. Her parents, embodiments of kindness and support, nurtured her and her two brothers with a love that was both boundless and unconditional. From a young age, Heidi's life was a whirlwind of academic achievements and creative pursuits. She had a mind that hungered for knowledge and a spirit that danced to the rhythm of life's joys. Her love for drawing was evident in the countless handmade cards she crafted for friends, each one a small treasure of her affection and talent. Her energy was inexhaustible, whether she was gracefully swinging a tennis racket or lifting her voice in melodious harmony in the choir. Heidi's presence was like a bright star in the night sky, impossible to overlook, impossible not to be drawn to. High school brought new adventures. It was here, amidst the hallowed halls of learning and growth, that Heidi found a new family in the youth group of her local church. This was not just a group of peers. It was a collective of young souls, each seeking their own path to grace and understanding. In this sanctuary of faith and fellowship, Heidi's path crossed with Nick Furr's. He was a young man with an easy smile and a gaze that seemed to hold secrets of a deeper world. 2 years her senior, Nick lived in the same neighborhood, their lives intertwined by geography and now by destiny. Their friendship blossomed like a flower in spring, each moment spent together adding another petal to the bloom of their growing bond. It wasn't long before friendship turned to romance, and the two became inseparable, a pair of hearts beating in unison against the backdrop of their quaint town. Their love story was the talk of Haltom Heights, a tale of youthful love that promised a future as bright as the stars that watched over them. It was a bond forged in the warmth of shared dreams and hopes, a partnership that seemed destined to stand the test of time. As they stood at the threshold of their shared journey, with the blessings of their families and friends, Heidi and Nick's lives were a tapestry of happiness and aspirations. Little did they know, the threads of their fate were already weaving a story far different from the one they had envisioned. The budding romance between Heidi and Nick blossomed into a love that felt like destiny. Their relationship, nurtured in the heart of their church's youth group, grew into a deep and profound connection. They were the perfect match, Two young souls who understood and complemented each other in every way. Nick, with his kind eyes and gentle demeanor, was a beacon of stability and strength for Heidi. He admired her passion for life and her unwavering commitment to her goals. Together, they became a fixture in their community, their love story and inspiration to those around them. 2 years after they first met, amidst the autumn leaves and under the watchful eyes of God, their friends and families, Heidi and Nick vowed to journey through life together. Their wedding was a celebration of love, an event that brought together the entire community in a joyous union. Life as a married couple started as if it were a dream. They moved into a quaint home, a cozy nest for their growing love. Their days were filled with laughter, shared dreams, and plans for a future that seemed as bright as the morning sun. Nick pursued his career ambitiously, becoming the director of a local carpet cleaning company, while Heidi found her place in the financial firm where her father worked. Their careers were on the rise, mirroring the upward trajectory of their life together. In addition to their professional lives, they remained deeply involved in their church. Leading different youth groups, they became pillars of the community, guiding and inspiring young minds with their wisdom and kindness. Friends and family looked on with admiration. Heidi and Nick's life seemed like a fairy tale, a perfect blend of love, ambition, and community spirit. They were the golden couple, a shining example of what a marriage could be. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, unknown to those who looked on, currents of unseen troubles were beginning to stir. These undercurrents would, in time, surface in the most tragic of ways, challenging the very foundation of the life they had built together. As they settled into their peaceful home in the calm suburbs of St. Paul, little did they know that this haven would soon become the stage for a turn of events that would shatter their world and leave an indelible mark on the history of Haltom Heights. April 25, 2010, began like any other day in the quiet suburb of St. Paul. The sun peeked through the curtains of Heidi and Nick's cozy home, casting a warm glow on the couple still nestled in the tranquility of sleep. But as the clock hands inched towards 6:32 a.m., their world was about to be shattered in a way no one could have foreseen. It started with a phone call, a call that echoed through the stillness of the morning, a frantic voice piercing the calm. Heidi, in a state of sheer panic, dialed 911. Her voice, usually so full of life and joy, was now trembling with terror. She stammered out words about someone trying to break into their home. Fear laced every syllable. Before she could say more, a deafening bang cut through the call, followed by a blood-curdling scream. The line went dead, leaving the 911 operator in a state of shock, grasping at the silence that followed. Minutes later, another call came through. This time it was Nick, his voice unrecognizable, a mix of cries and pleas for help. He was frantic, sobbing uncontrollably, begging the operator to send the police and an ambulance. His words were disjointed, painting a chaotic and horrifying picture. The police, upon receiving the calls, rushed to the Exon residence, their hearts racing with a mix of dread and urgency. They arrived to a scene that was a stark contrast to the peace of the early morning. The front door ajar, the house eerily silent. Inside, they found a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned officers. Heidi lay motionless, a tragic figure robbed of her vibrant life. Nick was there too, injured, his body bearing the marks of a violent struggle. The home that once echoed with laughter and love was now a tableau of tragedy. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows or jimmied locks. It was as if the assailant was an uninvited ghost, slipping through the defenses of their sanctuary. As the sun rose higher, casting its light on the grim scene, the questions began to mount. Who would do this? Why? The peaceful neighborhood, once a haven for its residents, now felt like a stage for an unfathomable crime. The police, tasked with unraveling this mystery, stood amidst the remnants of a shattered dream. This was more than a crime scene. It was the end of a love story that had captivated all who knew Heidi and Nick, and thus began a journey into the darkness, a quest for truth that would span over a decade, testing the limits of justice and the resilience of a community shaken to its core. Behind the facade of Heidi and Nick's seemingly perfect life lay hidden layers, complex and unseen. Heidi, with her bright future and infectious zest for life, had been the pride of her family. Growing up in a loving, supportive environment, she had blossomed into a woman of substance, admired by all who knew her. Her life was a kaleidoscope of activities and achievements. She was not just academically gifted, but also creatively talented. Her passion for art manifested in the beautiful greeting cards she crafted for friends and family, each a small window into her soul. Her love for tennis and her involvement in the church choir showcased a multifaceted personality, always striving for growth and enrichment. At school, Heidi's vivacity and intelligence shone bright. Her decision to join the youth group at her church was another testament to her desire to connect, to contribute to her community. It was here that her path crossed with Nick, a young man who was equally engaged in community service and shared her values and aspirations. Nick, older and seemingly wiser, was instantly drawn to Heidi's lively spirit and sharp intellect. Their connection was instant and deep, rooted in shared interests and mutual respect. As they began dating, their bond seemed to lift them both to new heights, their synergy palpable to everyone around them. Their courtship was a beautiful journey of discovery, each learning from and growing with the other. They became role models in their community, their relationship a beacon of hope and love. Their marriage, 2 years later, was a celebration not just of their love, but of the ideals they stood for. But as the years passed, the pressures of life began to weigh on them. Heidi found a fulfilling job in a financial firm, while Nick took up a significant role in a local company. They juggled their careers, church responsibilities, and personal aspirations, all while maintaining the facade of a perfect life. However, beneath this surface, strains began to emerge. The couple's ambitions and lifestyle choices slowly led them into a labyrinth of financial complications. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple living the American dream. But behind closed doors, their reality was far different. Their story was becoming a complex tapestry of contrasting threads, bright shades of public success, and darker hues of private struggles. As they navigated through these challenges, little did they know that these underlying tensions would soon escalate into a tragedy, casting a long, dark shadow over their once bright future. The tranquility of that fateful morning in St. Paul was forever altered by the harrowing events at the Exon residence. As the police embarked on their investigation, they were confronted with a scene that defied easy explanation. The house, a symbol of Heidi and Nick's love and dreams, was now a tableau of horror and mystery. As the investigators combed through the home, they noted with puzzlement the absence of forced entry. The front door's lock was intact, suggesting that the assailant either had a key or had been allowed entry. This detail cast a shadow of doubt and confusion, raising questions about the nature of the intruder's relationship with the couple. The first floor bore silent witness to the chaos of the attack. Signs of a struggle were evident in the disarray. Heidi's lifeless body, a stark reminder of the brutality of the incident, lay amidst this turmoil. Nick, found injured, was a mix of grief and shock, his account of the events a jumble of pain and confusion. Nick's shotgun, a grim centerpiece to the scene, hinted at a desperate struggle for survival. But its presence raised as many questions as it answered. Was it used in self-defense, or did it play a more sinister role in the night's events? The neighbors' accounts added another layer of complexity. They spoke of a car speeding away around the time of the incident, a detail that suggested a planned escape. Yet they could offer no concrete description of the vehicle or its occupant, their observations shrouded in the uncertainty of the early morning haze. Amidst this confusion, the investigators faced a daunting task. The lack of clear evidence, the absence of a forced entry, and the conflicting timelines created a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. Each clue seemed to lead to more questions, each hypothesis challenged by the absence of concrete proof. The police widened their search, Scouring the nearby areas and interviewing more witnesses, they hoped to find a trace of the perpetrator, a clue that would lead them out of this labyrinth of uncertainty. But the trail was cold, and the mystery only deepened. As the investigation continued, the community's sense of security was shattered. The belief that such violence could not touch their peaceful neighborhood was replaced by a gnawing fear and suspicion. The questions lingered in the air. Who could have done this, and why? This case, which had started as a response to an emergency call, was quickly turning into one of the most baffling and heart-wrenching mysteries in the history of Haltom Heights, a mystery that would take years to unravel, its twists and turns challenging the very notions of justice and truth. As the investigation into the tragic events at the Exon residence unfolded, a different picture of Heidi and Nick's life began to emerge, one starkly contrasting with the idyllic image they had presented to the world. The detectives delved deeper, peeling back layers of their seemingly perfect existence, uncovering truths that had been carefully hidden away. The financial aspect of their lives came under scrutiny. It was a revelation that stunned those who knew them. Despite outward appearances of prosperity and comfort, the couple was drowning in a sea of financial troubles. Their lavish lifestyle, which included frequent vacations and expensive purchases, was a facade masking a grim reality. Investigators discovered that their financial woes were far more serious than anyone had imagined. The couple's home, their haven of happiness, was on the brink of being lost. They had taken out 2 loans to purchase it, and after a few years of regular payments, they had fallen behind. The bank had decided to foreclose, and the couple was facing eviction, a fact they had hidden from everyone, including their closest family and friends. This revelation shed a new light on the case. The detectives pondered the implications of these financial struggles on the couple's relationship and mental state. Could the stress of impending financial ruin have led to a tragic confrontation? Nick's story, initially a narrative of a violent break-in, began to waver under the weight of these new findings. His version of events, once considered a key testimony, was now scrutinized for inconsistencies and gaps. The neighborhood, once abuzz with stories of their perfect life, was now whispering about the hidden troubles that lurked beneath. Friends and family grappled with this new reality, struggling to reconcile the couple they thought they knew with the emerging details of their private struggles. The investigation had taken a dramatic turn. What had initially seemed like a straightforward case of home invasion and murder was now a complex web of financial woes, secrets, and lies. The image of the happy, successful couple was crumbling, revealing a much more complicated and potentially darker story. As the detectives continued to unravel the tangled threads of Heidi and Nick's life, the community of Haltom Heights watched in disbelief. The case that had shaken their town was evolving into a saga of hidden truths and unspoken despair, a narrative far removed from the fairy tale it once seemed to be. The serene facade of Heidi and Nick's life was being peeled away, layer by layer, revealing a complex underbelly of secrets and lies. As investigators dove deeper into the case, they found themselves navigating a labyrinth of deception that extended far beyond the initial suspicions of a home invasion. Nick's narrative of the events was becoming increasingly difficult to align with the emerging facts. His account, once filled with the anguish of a grieving husband, was now riddled with inconsistencies and gaps that the detectives couldn't ignore. The most perplexing aspect was the timing and nature of the 911 calls. Heidi's frantic plea for help was followed by a silence that spoke volumes. Nick's subsequent call, full of desperation and chaos, seemed to tell a story of its own. However, the lack of concrete evidence of an intruder's presence in the house during these calls cast doubt on the entire sequence of events as described by Nick. The investigation took a turn when they delved into the couple's finances. The surface-level opulence of their lives was a stark contrast to the reality of their financial situation. The detectives discovered that the Exons were on the brink of losing their home, a fact hidden behind a veneer of normalcy and financial stability. This new revelation raised a chilling possibility. Was the motive for the tragedy rooted in the couple's financial despair? Could the pressure of maintaining a facade amidst looming financial ruin have led to a catastrophic outcome? As the detectives scrutinized Nick's actions and statements in the days leading up to and following the incident, they began to see a pattern of behavior that pointed to a deeper involvement than initially suspected. His actions didn't align with those of a man grappling with an unexpected tragedy, but rather seemed calculated, a series of steps taken to maintain a certain narrative. The community of Haltom Heights, once a haven of peace and tranquility, was now grappling with the unsettling notion that the tragedy at the Exon home might not have been the work of an external assailant, but the culmination of a domestic spiral into despair and violence. The case, which had begun as a search for an unknown intruder, was now veering into a darker territory, exploring the depths of what can happen when the pressures of life become too great and the facades we build to protect ourselves start to crumble. As the months and then years passed, the investigation into the Exon tragedy continued, but with each step forward, it seemed as though the case only became more convoluted. The St. Paul community, once bound by trust and camaraderie, found itself enveloped in a cloud of suspicion and uncertainty. The police, steadfast in their commitment to uncovering the truth, faced an uphill battle. Each clue led to more questions, and every lead seemed to dissipate into the other. The case that had started with such urgency was now a complex web of theories and conjectures, with no clear path to a resolution. Nick, who had initially cooperated with the investigators, grew increasingly frustrated and distant. His initial openness gave way to reticence, and eventually he sought the counsel of an attorney, withdrawing from the limelight of the investigation. His lawyer, advocating on his behalf, accused the police of tunnel vision, of focusing solely on Nick to the exclusion of other possible suspects or scenarios. In a bid to shift the narrative, Nick and his attorney released a sketch of the alleged intruder based on Nick's belatedly detailed description. This move, intended to reinvigorate the search for an external suspect, instead raised eyebrows. The sudden clarity of Nick's memory, after months of vague descriptions, struck the investigators and the community as peculiar. The police continued their painstaking work, re-examining evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, and retracing the timeline of that fateful morning. But with each passing day, the case seemed to grow colder, the truth more elusive. In the years that followed, life in Haltom Heights gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Nick, carrying the weight of his loss and the cloud of suspicion, eventually found love again. He remarried, starting a new chapter in his life, seemingly moving past the tragedy that had once defined his existence. But the case was far from forgotten. For the detectives, the families involved, and the community at large, the unresolved nature of Heidi's death was a wound that refused to heal. Rumors and theories continued to circulate, but without new evidence or leads, the case remained in a state of frustrating stagnation. The Exon case had become a dark legend in the town, a story of love, loss, and mystery that continued to haunt the quiet streets of St. Paul. The truth, it seemed, was buried deep within the tangled web of events and emotions that had unfolded in the Exon home, elusive and ever out of reach. Years had passed since the tragic morning that shook the foundations of Haltom Heights. The Exon case, once the center of relentless attention, had slowly receded into the background, a cold case in a file growing dustier with time. But in the relentless pursuit of justice, the embers of investigation never truly die. They smolder, waiting for a breath to reignite them. In a twist of fate, or perhaps destiny, the case found new life under the scrutiny of a fresh pair of eyes. Detective Nicole Sykes, known for her tenacity and keen investigative instincts, took over the cold case. She approached it with no preconceptions, only a resolute determination to unearth the truth that had long eluded her predecessors. Her first step was to revisit the haunting 911 call made by Heidi on that fateful morning. Technology had advanced since the initial investigation, and with these new tools at her disposal, Detective Sykes sought to uncover any overlooked details hidden in the audio. Collaborating with audio forensics experts, She dissected every second of the call. The analysis revealed a startling revelation. There was no evidence of a third party's presence in the house during the call. This finding cast a significant shadow of doubt over Nick's account of an intruder and the ensuing struggle. Detective Sykes then turned her attention to the physical evidence and the sequence of events as told by Nick. She recreated the crime scene digitally, analyzing the trajectory of the shots and the positioning of the bodies. The analysis contradicted Nick's narrative. The physical evidence did not align with a struggle with an intruder. As she delved deeper, Sykes discovered the financial quagmire that had entangled Heidi and Nick. The looming foreclosure, the debts, and the facade of affluence they maintained. All these painted a picture of a life under immense strain. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place when Rachel Watson, Nick's new wife, uncovered similar financial deceptions in their marriage. Her discoveries and subsequent separation from Nick mirrored the hidden turmoil in his previous marriage. Armed with new evidence and insights, Detective Sykes brought the case before the court once again. The trial was a culmination of years of dogged investigation, a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth. The prosecution painted a picture of a man driven to the edge by financial despair, a narrative of a tragic choice made in a moment of overwhelming pressure. The defense clung to the theory of an unknown intruder, but the evidence was overwhelmingly against it. After a trial filled with emotional testimonies and compelling arguments, the jury delivered their verdict. Nick was found guilty of second-degree murder, a verdict that resounded through the courtroom and the community. In his final statement, Nick maintained his innocence, a claim echoed by his family, but the weight of evidence and the jury's decision stood firm. Nick was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The Exon case, a saga that spanned over a decade, had finally reached its conclusion. For the community of Haltom Heights, it was a closure tinged with sadness, a reminder of the fragility of human lives and the complex webs we weave. The truth, elusive and painful, had finally been unveiled, bringing an end to a chapter that had haunted the town for far too long.